What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Dilara Cossette. You can check them out at focusimagepro.com. And Dilara, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes of the podcast people should check out. Since this is part of the top agency series, some of the good ones, some of my favorites are Dee Clevitt. Dee Clevitt is an agency. She does done-for-you SOPs. So she goes in, she helps document SOPs to smooth out client onboarding, staff onboarding. She's really good. We geeked out on our favorite software and productivity tools on that episode. It was a really good one. Another good one was Todd Taskey. Todd Taskey has the Second Bite podcast, and he helps pair private equity with agencies. He helps sell agencies. And Second Bite, because sometimes the agency owner makes more on the second bite than they do on the first when the private equity sells again. It was a really good episode on the business space, M&A, valuation, and the agency space as well. Check that out. And Duncan Elney was a good one. Duncan Elney, Firebelly, they have a great podcast as well. Duncan, and we're going to talk about niching, Dilara, of course. They specialize in food and beverage companies, and they do social media marketing for food and beverage companies. And we're going to talk about niching, the importance of niching on this as well. Check that one out with Duncan Elney. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. And we do the strategy, the accountability, and the full execution. So Dilara, we call ourselves the magic elves that run in the background to make it look easy for the hosts. They can create amazing content, create amazing relationships, and most importantly, run their business. You know, for me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships, and I have found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, you can go to rise25.com or email us at support@rise25.com. I'm excited to introduce Dilara Cossette. She's the founder of Focus Image Pro. They're a boutique demand generation agency specializing in solutions for HR tech companies. They offer fractional demand generation services. That includes paid ads, design, landing page optimization, SEO, and much, much more. And Dilara, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I'd love for you to just start off and tell people about Focus Image Pro and what you do. As you do that, there is a video portion for people. I'm going to pull up their website and we're going to poke around as she's talking. So Dilara, tell us about Focus Image Pro.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for the intro. Basically, we are a boutique demand generation agency, and we work exclusively with HR tech companies. And the reason why, going back to your point about niching down, we niched down recently to HR tech because HR is very close to my heart. I used to work in HR, for HR, and now with HR tech companies. And I'm very passionate about everything related to workplace culture, employee engagement, satisfaction, performance, you name it. And I truly believe that for someone running a demand generation agency, you have to believe in demand gen, but you also have to be passionate about the industry. So that's the reason, that's where we are. I started my company a few years ago. Now we're a team of 7 people. I'm very proud of the culture that we're building. And it's, it's a roller coaster, I would say. Entrepreneurship, definitely. It's ups and downs all the time, but it's paid out at the end of the day.
Talk about the decision. We'll go back a little bit, but when you first started the company, talk about the decision and journey to niching. Right now, obviously, you're in HR, you're focused on HR tech. When you first started, talk about that thought process of niching, or what were the companies you were serving then?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So when I started, it was always as a side gig. So I used to work all my life in B2B SaaS organizations. I had a little bit of experience with HR, a little bit experience working in an agency as well. But for the last 10 years, I was working in B2B SaaS. So when I started the company, I was supporting B2B SaaS organizations. Basically, that's how we started supporting other clients. And when I fully shifted from full-time job to running 100% my agency, that's where the focus already. So a few clients that we have, they were all in B2B SaaS. And then we were growing and scaling, we were focusing on B2B SaaS. But when people say B2B SaaS is niche down, it's still think very vague. And there's a lot of companies, agencies, fractional folks that they really focus on B2B SaaS. So I really wanted to go even further and niching like triple niching. So that's the reason how we wanted to go after HR tech. And I think like it's helpful for clients because we have experience and we have an expertise in the specific industry and we kind of like talk the same language. And it also helpful to hire people with the HR background. So it's kind of like a win-win. Yes, the Tom is smaller, that's for sure, but the conversations are more meaningful. I mean, that's basically the way how I see the things. I might be wrong or right. Let's chat in a few years to see if that was the right decision. But yeah, that's in a nutshell.
Talk about transitioning from working for someone to actually a side gig to actually starting your own and maybe your first few clients. What was the idea on the side gig piece?
I consider myself very lucky. The company I was working full time, they supported me in my career growth. And when we had this conversation with my manager, we realized and I liked his approach that career path, it's not really within one company. It's like my career path. And they supported me and became my first client, official, the big client. And that was this transition. To be honest with you, I'm very lucky. It was a very smooth transition. So I woke up and I started like fully transition this year. So I woke up the beginning of the month, January, and nothing really changed, just the contract base. And then I started growing and scaling, but it helped me a lot to set up the processes at the same time. We revamped the website. We made so many changes. I started hiring people, like getting partnership referrals. So that helped me really to stabilize the processes before I shifted also from fractional to demand generation. That's what happened somewhere in May. I was supporting a lot of clients on a fractional basis, but then when we started growing, I realized that it doesn't make sense for people being fractional. You can't have a team. So that's where I had to make a decision, and that's where we transition again to the agency model.
What was the role at the company? Your role at the
Oh,
company?
it was demand gen. So it was a demand generation, and I've been working in demand gen for the last 5, 6 years. Before it was more digital marketing side, more heavily focused on lead gen. And when we started looking at the way how people convert, how you create a demand, how brand awareness is important, I always advocate for creating the demand and capturing the demand after because it will cost you way less when you try to convert people who already aware of your brand.
Talk about demand gen to you. What does that mean? Because I know I've heard various people have different thoughts on it.
And this is so true. When you ask people, what is demand gen, even marketer folks, fractional CMOs, they will have their own definition. I would say it's brand awareness. It's a new term of brand awareness, but brand awareness can be social media. It can be advocacy. It's pretty much the same. But with the demand gen, the difference is you're not only focusing on brand awareness, you also just move people through the funnel. Basically, it's how to create a demand, convert it, and then to capture it. So when you move the buyers through this funnel by educating, sharing your knowledge, giving before even asking something like, for a demo or for a call, they will know where to come and how to convert when they're ready to buy or explore your solution. If we're talking about the B2B SaaS.
Because there's a lot, Laura, and you mentioned a few things that goes into demand generation, even just the creating, converting, capture. Each one of those, just creating, like each one of those has a laundry list of things under that. So when you were working with these companies as a fractional piece, were you executing on all these things, or were you advising their team on all the things that they need to do?
Well, it's both. It really depends on the company size. So we focus on small and mid-sized companies. If they already have a marketing team and they need a direction, we're just like, focused on strategic implementation. We can take over something and implement, but it's both. When we're talking about like small-sized companies, when they're like one person marketing team, that's where we come with the strategy and implementation as well, depending on their needs, depending on their budget. There's so many um, criterias. That's where before even putting together the proposal, we meet with them several times to understand what they really need, how many people are on the team, what are their responsibilities, what is the budget, what are their goals, how aggressive they are, how, what are the tactics. Also, it takes some time to understand what they did, what worked, what didn't work. So we won't really waste their money and budget for something that they maybe implemented, tried, and it didn't work.
And then for you, so when you started off with these companies, when you were working for the company, was there a team under you and you were doing kind of the strategic vision of it and passing it along to the team?
Usually, yes. So we're also growing and scaling at the moment. Yes, everything related to strategic and just like management, it falls under me. But obviously, yeah, it will be a little bit hard when we grow and scale. But at the moment, I really like and enjoy talking to people, especially HR tech. I'm very passionate, so I can't imagine myself not doing the actual work. There was a moment when I was delegating almost like 90% of the task, and it felt, yeah, I didn't enjoy it. So I really like love, like, rolling the sleeve and get into the stuff, trying to figure it out, analytical, point of view. So yeah, I really enjoy it.
Talk about the evolution of the team a little bit and some of the key hires. So obviously it's you're fractional, for a bunch of companies. Talk about the kind of as you go, some of the key hires and people you put in place.
It's interesting. I always say that people, they don't work for me. We work together. And I truly believe that we grow together. So I see that more as a partnership and collaboration other than people I hire and they are like, reporting to me because we learn from each other and we grow together. I would say it depends really what the company wants. If they're focused and they really need someone to execute their paid ad strategy, there will be people I partner with and we work together to help them to get to their revenue goals. If it's something like related to email marketing and life cycle stages, there will be people who will work together to make sure we set up the processes and those like workflows and sequences to make sure we convert MQLs to SQLs, let's say, or to customers.
Who
So yeah.
who was your first or position was your first key hire after you started
Um,
bringing other team members on?
it's a good point. It's a paid media manager.
And then, obviously you were in HR, you work with a lot of HR tech companies. What are some of the mistakes you see people making with HR and culture?
When they're targeting, talking to HR companies, or generally when they're trying to build the culture in.
Build the culture.
Oh, there's so many things. It's like such a big topic to me. I think sometimes we do things and we don't really realize when we're under stress, it can be affected. Well, I mean, we can talk differently. We can use the aggressive tone. We can lose, some kind of like a connection with the team members. What is interesting, I used to work in B2B SaaS, almost 10 years, but I realized that all the companies I used to work they had a toxic culture before I joined the company. It was a great culture. So I looked back and I'm like, what was that? That was something. But I didn't know there was nothing to compare with. So I was thinking like, this is the norm. And this is like the way how people talk. They can use aggressive tone. They can raise a voice, inappropriate jokes. Not well to me, towards me, but generally I was seeing that. And I'm like, okay, that's most probably normal. When I joined a great culture, when people were so respectful, empathic, transparent, I realized, wow, that's how it feels. And it feels awesome. And every time when I hear like stories when people are treated, in a bad way, in not a right way, I always try to bring it out. I was like, hey, it's not normal.
what do you do with your team to maintain a great culture?
The first thing that I did, even before the first hire, we built the culture guide. To me, it was very important to set up the core values. And our core values are based on trust, transparency, respect, and empathy. And I think those company core values should be related at some point to personal values. All those four, this is the way how I live, you know? And I think this is important because when you try to build something, when you share this culture guide, it's easy for everyone to refer to those core values and realize the way how we want to talk. I think having those conversations and led by example, this is really good advice that I would give to everyone. If you want to create transparent culture, you have to be transparent. You have to share your failures as well with the team. You have to let them know if something doesn't work. And I think that will create the environment where they can come and say, you know what, I made a mistake. And you have to be very flexible with that as well. So it could happen. Let's try to figure it out how to solve it together. So.
Yeah, it was funny. I forgot. I've had a past guest or talk about this a little, core values a little bit. And I was like, and we were talking about actually, and we were talking before we hit record about our kids a little bit. And I was like, we should have like family core values. And so the other week at, one of the dinners, we kind of just went around and I said, if we had core value, like what would be a core value? And we kind of all went around and just shared what our core values, what a core value is from like our family perspective, right? And a lot of it, like you said, is kind of like looking at the personal piece, but that also translates into the business piece because that's what's important. So it was a very interesting conversation, and we kind of mapped out family core values. And it was interesting what everyone had to say, and then even calling people out on behavior based on the core
Mhm.
values, right? So, one of them was like humor, right? And so someone was being funny and, and obviously being nice and humor. And there's a gray area there of where someone's being funny, but maybe it's a little bit mean directed. So it's like, hey, that's against the nice core value, but that is the humor core value. So how do we, mix those? So I love that conversation. And I love how you said that is also comes from kind of a personal standpoint, from a core value perspective.
Yeah, and to be honest, you can't practice what you preach if you don't truly believe in what you're trying to just like, build at the company. So they have to be related to your personal value. Let's say empathy. If you're not empathic, I mean, I wouldn't suggest to put it as a company core value if you are not empathic, right? Or transparent. If you can't share publicly your failure, I mean, most probably that's not a best, core value to select for the company. I mean, that's at least like my perspective. That's where when I was putting those core values, I was thinking what important to me, what I value as a person. And it's the same thing. Personal value, it's applicable to family, to your friends, to your parents, to everyone you live with, right? Or you talk to every day, including your coworkers.
Laura, what are, you've worked with, obviously, we're talking about HR tech, but a lot of B2B SaaS in general. What are some, when you go in and you're looking at the company under the hood and assessing some of the strategy, what are some of the big mistakes you see B2B SaaS companies making?
I would say they focus a little bit too much on company rather than on people, and that's related to HR. But let me explain what I mean because people buy from people, they don't buy from companies. And the thing is, there's so many, it's very competitive. There's so many companies out there. And when you just like try to compete company versus company, it's becoming like very saturated. I always suggest to have someone who will become the brand advocate. So just to put and promote thought leadership content through that person. That person has to be authentic, experienced, not necessarily in sales or marketing, someone who is very flexible and comfortable being on camera, sharing, like eager to share his experience and expertise. And in that case, when people just like focus and help that person to put like in front of the audience, that will have way better. And based on our experience in A/B testing, it's like 10 times more engagement and impression when exactly the same post is boosted from the company page versus the personal. post. So I would say people too much focus on brand, on promoting the brand, trying to get quick wins, which I get it when especially you are in early stage, like a seed series A or just bootstrap, you really want to get quick wins, but it's getting more and more difficult because it's saturated, the cost per lead becoming extremely expensive, but it's when people try to shift from lead gen to demand gen, this is where they see success, but it's a very long game. So you have to be ready to that.
I want to highlight and understand a little bit more on what you do, but through some companies you worked with. And it could be any one of your ones that stick out. For me, Kudos seems like a really cool platform and company that you worked with. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what you did with Kudos and what they do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's employee recognition and reward software, and it helps companies to improve the performance and also decrease the turnover ratio as well. And we were using Kudos at Kudos, and I saw really significant improvement in collaboration with team members. And when people can just like recognize and publicly recognize you for the project that you've worked together for, some help, right? And it's incredible how you feel after that. It's something very hard to describe if you never use such type of platform, but the way how you feel is just like, to the moon and back. And it's peer-to-peer recognition, could be manager to employee. So it's really like very different type of the recognition that you can give to your coworkers, but it's amazing how you can just like publicly share. And I think appreciation is important, especially in the remote world. Before, when people was just passing and say like, "Hey, buddy, great job," and everyone was hearing because we were in the open space. Now we're just like, our bubbles. So sometimes people just don't know what their colleagues are working on. And I think this creates the appreciation, recognition, but also awareness of what people do and their hard work they are, spending like 8, 10 hours per day to just like contribute to. So, yeah.
What kind of things did you do and work with Kudos?
Oh, it was demand generation. So I was supporting their demand generation initiatives. And I think going back to the demand gen, it's important to explain if someone never heard about employee recognition rewards, it's becoming very popular term, but it's important to increase the awareness of the company and the importance. So it has to be related to the pain point of your target audience. Let's say mainly we're targeting HR leaders. And for them, turnover ratio is a big thing. And what's happening right now, like job market is really like changing, I would say like every month. So I know someone who just like went on a mat leave, came back 9 months ago, and she was like, I just like came back to a completely different job market. So I have to figure it out the way how it works now because it's shifting and changing, especially with people deciding to be fractional. There's so many fractional folks out there. I think turnover ratio is a big thing. So when you try to increase brand awareness or create the demand, you have to always think about like what is the pain point of person you're trying to reach out to, what they're struggling with every single day. When you link this two and increase the demand gen, then the conversion is way easier.
Got it. Dilara, I have one last question. Before I ask it, I just want to thank you for sharing some of the journey lessons, knowledge, and encourage people to check out focusimagepro.com to learn more. And if you've watched the video, you saw we pulled it up on the page here. My last question is, I'd love to hear your favorite tools, software, resources. It could be your tech stack that you use. What are some of your favorite? It could be an app, whatever, software tools or apps that you like as a person or company.
Great question. I would say for the last 10 years, I keep on saying HubSpot. HubSpot should pay me like a referral. I'm kidding. It's just like I'm a huge fan of the tool. I think they're great in terms of the customer support about the product. They're always evolving. We are actually their official service provider. So for me, it was like, really honor to get into the platform and just like, into this partnership because I'm advocating. And this is a great example actually of demand gen. So when you create the amazing support, amazing opportunity. So people using your app or your platform, they become brand advocates. So exactly what I did right now with Kudos, what I did like for HubSpot, because when you use something and you kind of like enjoy and see the value, you will definitely share and spread the word out there. I think this is a very organic demand gen without even paying any single penny for that. And I think this is important nowadays when we see like when we scroll LinkedIn or like any other social media, the feed is like flooded with paid ads, right? And how one company is not different from another. When someone is sharing their feedback, it's priceless.
And then anything on the project management front or communication team front that you like to use?
We use Trello internally. I like the tool. It's very easy to use. UX UI is very simple, straightforward, and we love it. I used to use different tools similar, but I mean, we ended up with Trello, and I'm happy with that.
And then from a communication, do you use any tools with the team to communicate?
We use Slack. So we are in Google Workplace. We use Slack. We use Trello. Yeah, that's basically our core set of the softwares that we use internally. And obviously, when the client, our partners, they use their own instances, we always want to be part of their CRM. We always want to be part of their communication channel because we truly believe that the way how we work is like extended part of your team. You have to communicate with them. I don't think like sending emails and then just getting response within 48 hours is the way to communicate. So we always ask access to their instances as well. So obviously if they're on ClickUp, if they're using Asana, we will be there as well. So we know all the tools. It's just internally we might have different tools.
Love it. So I want to be the first one to thank you. Everyone check out focusimagepro.com to learn more and more episodes of the podcast. And we'll see everyone next time. Dilara, thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Great questions.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like 100 grand.